over here. So we have this trail of oil, right? Coming from the top right here. So that would be, you know, starting to sit at the shock.
Oh, I see, on the yellow?
On the yellow.
Okay.
So pretty much start on this lane, go all the way up. So pretty much you have your shock main seal that's supposed to separate the dust and the elements.
Okay.
That's starting to allow oil to come out.
Okay.
Now, the tires, right? When we got in, the first thing I noticed is the cupping. So if you look at the wear, a lot of wear on the outside. It's kind of deforming, like rounding compared to the inside edge, where it's more like squarish.
Oh, I see.
So this is shocks pretty much.
Okay.
On their way out.
Okay.
It could be shocks. It could be alignment, highly unlikely because you know they're leaking.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, but that side's leaking, so it's gonna make funny things to the driving dynamics. Otherwise, the cushions look okay. To be honest, the NC's one characteristic is the shocks go out at 60, 70 km/h.
I see.
Yeah, and it's very, very common for this car to go through that. Yeah, same thing in the back. So when you see black build up in the shock, it's not just like the elements.
You're talking about all this.
All the grease build up.
I see.
The oil comes down, and with the soil, the grease, it just gets gunky and sticky. And over time, that oil collects dust and becomes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the source, collecting the oil, and that this side too.
Okay, got it. So all of them are leaking.
Yeah, 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4.
Yeah, so that would explain the characteristic that you are, defining, because the car will do unpredictable things. When you're going into a compression or a droop zone, you're really working with the springs. That's it, and the shock is keeping that together.
I see.
And now, if we think about it, a shock is a way of dissipating the energy, right? When you're compressing that suspension, it's supposed to absorb it and let it dissipate without you feeling it. So
right.
At the moment, you're just feeling spring.
Okay. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. If they keep moving around, what I would say is get some poly aftermarket ones. So that's they don't allow for movement.
So it's not moving. It's just kind of set left, and I just want to set it right if possible, but I can't figure out why it's set left.
Yes, I got you. So that's the only downside. Progressive means kind of like OEM. You have a spring that has this shape.
Okay.
And the behavior of the compressor over distance, it's pretty much like half a parabol. So
interesting.
It does not have a linear progression.
Interesting.
Over time,
Okay.
And that translates into good valving, plus that compliance, but also handling is not so great unless you're with Allens, where they mix the progressive in a straight shape with a dual flow valve. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's where those guys, they get away with that.
Okay.
Caster, positive, minus.
Okay.
So you're just moving the wheel forwards, backwards. So that would be your caster.
Oh, I see.
And for that, we're talking about this guy. As you have this eccentric rotating, it's gonna push this control arm pivot this way.
Okay.
Caster, high caster makes it very light, easy maneuvers, very friendly. You let off the wheel, it comes back on its own to the center point.
High caster is forward or behind?
It's
behind. Okay.
And low caster, we use it more to gain camber because they're pivoting on the same axis, right? So for a car, performance car, camber is always the solution for grip. The more camber, the happier the tire.
Negative camber, right?
Negative camber. So that would be this guy. As you're pushing this plane, this pivots like that.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you will gain negative camber. So the sacrifice is you lose caster, but for this car, if you ever get an alignment, between 4.5 to 7 is a good range.
For camber, or for caster?
For caster.
Camber,
I think stock you'll get to 1.5 maybe at most. Yeah.
How do you even adjust it here?
For the camber?
Yeah, like can you move it?
It's this bolt.
Okay.
So it's same thing, it's eccentric. So as you get it to rotate, this tab, it forces the arm to go that way.
That's really cool. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and this would be your tie rods, right?
Yep.
Where you're setting out the toe. So toe would be toe in, toe out.
Okay.
So that's what makes it, kind of like sketchy, twitchy.
Yeah.
For the front, it's interesting. A lot of people will tell you toe out is bad. It's going to kill the tire, but actually it makes the car less understeer. It makes it faster, but it wears out the tire a little bit.
Got it.
Sitting for the back, you only have camber, this would be your camber point. Yes. And this would be your toe. So the toe would pull in the wheel. It's like,
Got it.
yeah. So, yeah, then see, you know, when they made this car, which the Indy has the same suspension design. It's not much different. A lot of these parts actually transfer over. Multi-link is amazing for the back. So that, you know, once you fine-tune the shocks,
Yeah.
sway bars, I would say, don't even bother yet.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
get a nice shock and see if the dampers allow you to get to that body roll state where you can live with it.
Yeah.
Then if it doesn't, then fine-tuning element will be the sway bar. But yeah, it's amazing. The handle is really good. Like this car, seems like it came out, everybody hated on it.
Yep.
But over time, as you know, you got support, the swap, you know, it got refined. I think it's a new standard for Miata guys now.
Yeah.
And even then, it has more limitations than quite often the oil pan will leak. So
Oh, I
go to
see.
your first spot. So this is your pan right here,
Okay.
leading into the transmission. So you have a seam, and that's just RTV. So quite often they can leak, but on this side it's perfectly fine.
Okay.
On this side, if you look from here, the seam right here,
Uh-huh.
the 8mm bolts are, you can still try. Same thing transmission. Quite often it's gonna start leaking at the back of the tail. That's your output shock seal.
Okay.
And it's looking good. A little bit moist, but it could have been from service.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not leaking. I don't think it's leaking. At the top, you may see over here where the finger's going, kind of tight.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, a trail of oil.
Okay. On the back there.
Yeah, where the 2-bolt flange is.
Yeah.
That's the selector spring, so the shifter goes back in place.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes people will take that off and play with the adjustment. So they
Interesting.
can fine tune it, but then they don't replace the gasket. So when they put it back in, yes, it will start leaking. But I think in between oil changes, you can have it checked.
Okay.
This light will help you. So this, you can have it checked with a little red light.
Okay.
If it doesn't get worse, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Let's see, what else? Diff is okay. Differential. As we get into newer cars, they don't require as much maintenance as you know, NAMBs, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so everything's looking good from the bottom.
Okay.
So we can go to the top. Looks good. Yeah, even Mazda from factory, I don't know if you noticed, they're filling the subframe with foam. To stiffen up the chassis. So you look at the yellow stuff, it's in certain areas. So this is like the race car way of things. So yeah, where the red light.
Oh, that.
Yeah, it's actually foam that you can spray inside and it expands, so it forces the metal to be more compact. That is a factory mode.
That's crazy.
Over here. And
Okay.
you can start collecting water. So
Okay.
just keep an eye on it when it starts raining heavy.
Okay.
Because if it gets clogged up, it's gonna overflow and get into the food well and everywhere else.
Got it. Yeah.
But this one's very straightforward. So 2 hoses,
Uh-huh.
clamps. Get new hose clamps though.
Okay.
Don't get new ones, and then 10mm bolts and whoop.
Do I need to bleed out the system?
You still do, yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna be brief, so all you really gotta do is, you know, level it up, get it up to 10, blast the heater on, and let it get to 10 to the point that the fans work.
Okay.
Once your fans work, that's how you know your thermostat's actually open. And that's where the coolant starts getting hot and circulating fully.
Okay.
Otherwise, if the fans don't come on, thermostat's closed, so the air that's inside is not coming.
Oh, I see. I see. Got it. So after I replace it, put in the coolant, then I turn the car back on, let it heat up, and then once the fans come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blast the heater.
That's the heater first. Okay.
Yeah, make sure AC is off. And yeah, that's about it. And you know, if you don't want to make a mess, if you have a 12mm bulb, you can just put it in there. So it doesn't
Okay.
leak. Something silly like that.
Nice.
It don't seem good. Yeah. No valve cover gasket leak. No. next one I would watch over time is pointed with a red dot. There's a thermostat housing, right? The black piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, you know, like the coolant expansion tank.
Okay.
They go brown. So right now it's black, which is good. They're kind of like radiators. They're all radiators where you have plastic tanks at the top.
Sorry, could you point the dot again?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that guy.
Yeah. So it's an outlet
Okay.
for the thermostat into the radiator hoses. When it starts going brown, like you're gonna notice it, kind of like this color.
Okay.
You know, this is just us, but you do want to have that service because it's going to eventually crack.
Okay.
And then, you know, kind of like make a mess and leave you stranded. But other than that, you know, I don't see anything really strange. Fluid service, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it should be new brake fluid.
That looks cleanish, yeah. Other than that, it's looking good.
Okay, cool.
Most alarming things for this car are valve cover gasket, oil pan, shocks.
Okay.
That's it, really.
Okay. Should I also do the radiator, or is the coolant expansion tank enough?
If you're not going to track this, I would just leave it alone.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to see this one. Yeah, so what's the AC? So it sits right here. You have a massive fan shroud. It sits under this, under this. Under
Okay.
this. And this is not V-mount setup, so it's not like a normal car, you know. Is V, it means it's a lot. We can suck more.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll just leave it alone.
Okay.
Until you start tracking. That's,
okay.
that's really the moment where you're gonna put things under stress.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, same thing for this guy. Even if it's plastic, and a lot of people keep it that way because the Moroso is kind of silly sometimes. They can leak. And not at the welds, at the cap point.
I see.
Yeah, the flange can warp, and then when you close it, it just keeps sending coolant into the expansion tank, into the overflow. So you have coolant leaking.
Like leaking out. Yeah.
But yeah, at least if you track the car once a year, check it out, see how it's looking. Just because track days get really hot.
Okay.
And because it's sitting right on top of the radiator, that's the whole notion. You're just blowing hot air.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, other than that, it's looking good. Tires maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
You got an aligner, right?
I have not.
Oh,
I've not gone. Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I should do coils before or the springs before I do an alignment. I don't know when the last owner did it.
yeah, because it has a lot of rollover. So this wear, you see, is like
Yeah.
it's a shock wear. So you're capping the tires.
Okay.
So that's a combination of shock and also maybe alignment, maybe. But the back doesn't have that behavior yet.
Right.
But if you notice the wear, it's starting to build up. So the harder you're gonna drive it, so this patch is gonna start looking like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, understeer's definitely been the main issue that I've been dealing with. But okay, so start with shocks.
I would do shocks, and then we can get the car to do pretty much anything you want.
Cool.
And the only reason I go with them is because over so many years, I try more affordable products. Kind of like, let me try this this option, and at the end, it's always that same. There's that few exceptions that make it not worth it.
Yeah.
To support it, but I'm happy to say that for you.
Okay. I also saw that Goodwin sells an engine brace. Oh, I guess this one has it, right? That blocks the coilover dampener adjustment.
Yeah, depending on the shock, I would even just delete it.
Okay.
Just because it doesn't really do much. The piece that you're mounting, it's really flimsy.
Okay.
It's really thin grade. Kind of like this.
The thing that you're mounting to?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Mounting
see.
into a point that's very flimsy.
Oh.
And, so the strut bars, they do work when you have a triangle happening across.
Okay.
So, something going over there and then there, that would work because you're separating both left and right from flexing. But that one, it's a little tricky.
Okay, got it. I know Goodwin sells one that I think goes over.
Yeah.
It's like $250 or something like that. I don't know if you think it's worth it.
I would just buy a better coilover.
Yeah.
Performance-wise, like even my customers that got it, we could never justify other than easy access to the shops. But you can do the same thing by
Just removing. Yeah.
removing this.
Okay.
Remember, ND Sport doesn't have this. ND Club.
Okay.
ND GT doesn't have. Same thing for the NAs and NDs.
Interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, once you go with the shocks and you put in, like I said, don't worry about sway bars, don't worry about endings, don't worry about all these extra add-on. So that's where I'm going. If you're considering adding more parts, just focus on the suspension package.
Yep.
Because by that changing that one thing, you'll have flexibility to do a lot.
Okay.
Whereas the lower grade shocks, you'll be comfortable within the compromised performance, or you'll have performance in the compromises.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So it's just the technology in the shock.
Okay. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and Conis are great. Like they're great all the way. They're easy to rebuild service because you can upgrade the parts. A lot of people will valve them, custom valve them to the point that they become $3,000 shocks.
What does valving mean? So
Changing the shims side, so the valving profile changes.
Okay.
So, you can make them stiffer, you know. The trick for these shocks are, for example, you have, let's say, let's compare like a Meister R on race specs, right? You have the rebound behaving in a way that, sure, it'll have a stiff spring, but it's going to allow you to decrease those frequencies at high speed. High speed, you know, it's sweepers, because tracks are smooth, and most of the roads, you know, when you commute, you have on-ramps that are smooth, so it translates into better performance. For that application, it works great. But once you go into low speed, bumpy, autocross, for example, which is the one that's hard to beat, you have cracks on the road like this, and the tire doesn't like that. Any sudden changing body weight or body transfer between, you know, front and back cross causes a loose situation.
okay.
And these shocks don't have the ability to move oil through those shims. And the shims are literally just like pucks with tiny holes, and they're stacked together. So what they're doing is they're slowing down the flow of oil passing through. And as it compresses, you know, it handles that energy. So it can be smooth, you can have the car planted.
I see.
Yeah, a lot of the shocks, they don't have the ability to do that because it's a hardware issue. The Connie yellows, for example, you can do it because they have the race shocks, the white ones, to the yellows. And then when you look at, for example, the touring shocks, you can also do that. You can grab the race shocks and kind of like stack them.
Interesting.
So it's very, very modular. But
Got it.
on the low frequency, that's why they're using a progressive spring.
Okay.
That's the only combo that will allow you to keep it comfortable. And then, you know, once you go into sweepers, the dependency of this is you hit a bump at high speed, and the car's gonna have that OEM-like bounciness.
Yeah.
It's gonna carry on.
Yeah.
And that's just the characteristic of the valving.
Okay. Okay.
So it's kind of like, if that's okay with you,
I hate it.
it's gonna be tricky. Now you can make it stiffer, and it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
But then again, once you go into low speed,
Yep.
holes, things like that, you're gonna feel everything.
Yep.
Not like the stock suspension, you know, you feel that jolt.
Got it.
That's where the Olens, and this is not, I'm not promising upselling nothing. It's just the stack inside, you know. Literally, it's just allowing oil to pass 2 times the volume at lower speed.
I see. I see.
So that's why they're so compliant.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's tricky because you don't see much of it, but yeah, there you go. They're starting to crack.
Okay.
Hard to identify, but
Oh, yeah, I see it.
yeah. So
Interesting.